Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out for the special meeting for the mayor's budget. At this time, we'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. With the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the clerk will take roll call.
Councilman Ronald Quagliani,
Councilman Ron Quagliani, Council at Large present.
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor,
Councilwoman Colleen O'Connor, Council at Large here.
Councilman Gary Donovan,
Councilman Gary Donovan, Councilman at Large, present.
Councilwoman Bridget Hosky is absent, Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite is absent, Councilwoman Sarah Acrobali,
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District present.
Councilman Mitchell Galignano is absent, Councilwoman Robin Watt Hamilton,
Councilwoman Robin Watt Hamilton, 5th District, present.
Councilwoman Kathy Tucker is
Absent.
She's absent. Councilman Victor Boras is absent. Councilman Robert Bruno.
Councilman Robert Bruno, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone, 10th District, present.
And Chairman Peter Massaro.
Chairman Peter Massaro, 6th District, present.
Okay. We have 8. And
Ron shut off everybody's mic but his.
yeah, he did.
Stacy,
Yes?
Kathy's on.
Oh, okay. So Ms. Tucker is on her way.
Ready?
Let's go.
Yes, we're all set.
The clerk will read the call of the special meeting at this time.
West Haven City Council, notice of agenda, special meeting, public hearing, Finance Committee, Council as a whole. In accordance with the City Charter, Chapter 19, Section 4, the City Council of the City of West Haven will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, March 29th, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium of the Harry Bailey Middle School, 106 Morgan Lane, West Haven, at which time any elector or taxpayer may have an opportunity to be heard regarding appropriations for fiscal year July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Electors are also hereby notified of the right power of the electorate in regards to a referendum in accordance with the City Charter, Chapter 18. Mayor Rossi's recommended budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 in its entirety can be found on the City of West Haven's website, www.cityofwesthaven.com.
Thank you, Stacy. Now, Mayor Rossi will do her presentation of the budget.
Can everyone hear me? Yes, no? Okay. Fiscal year 2022-2023 recommended operating budget. Dear Chairman Massaro and members of the City Council and members of the public, as required by and in compliance with the West Haven City Charter, it is my pleasure to present my recommended operating budget for fiscal year 2023, which begins on July 1st, 2022, and ends on June 30th, 2023. The City of West Haven, although facing some of the toughest times in our history over the last several years, including a health pandemic and unfortunate criminal behavior, continues to make needed structural changes and improvements to meet our long-term strategic goals. The fiscal year 2023 recommended budget is balanced, makes critical investments in our community and educational system, and is fiscally responsible. The recommended budget does not increase the city or Allentown Fire District tax mill rates. The budget does not include any state restructuring grant funding from MARB for a straight second year. I am proud to report that the City of West Haven has managed 4 consecutive balanced budgets, all producing surpluses. We expect a 5th operating surplus for fiscal year 2022 when the audit is completed. Our fund balance, or rainy day fund, continues to grow, giving the city financial flexibility and stability while we look to a post-COVID world. Our non-property tax revenues continue to increase for fiscal year 2023, with a long overdue increase in payment in lieu of taxes pilot payments from the state from the state for non-taxable properties in the city. The real estate conveyance tax also continues to drive up revenue estimates as West Haven's housing market is strong and among the leaders in the state. The city's general fund long-term debt service payment will decrease $3.3 million in fiscal year 2023 as the 20-year police pension obligation bonds matured and are paid off. The long-term debt service payment in fiscal year 2023 will be $14.6 million, down from $17.9 million in fiscal year 2022, or an 18.28% decrease. Some of the savings will be restricted in the general fund to ensure the long-term sustainability for the police union contract that I negotiated and the city council recently approved. My recommended budget continues to invest in the city's aging infrastructure with road and sidewalk improvements, as well as continuing the renovation and maintenance of our city parks, playgrounds, athletic facilities, and open space. We look forward to completing and moving forward many current economic development and community projects which will increase the commercial grand list further, stabilizing our tax mill rate. The floodgates and newly lighted bridge at the mouth of the Cove River will be completed this summer. The permits to complete the raising of Beach Street are awaiting approval at the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The New England Brewery Company will break ground at the former site of the Savin Rock Conference Center, and Hartford Healthcare will be moving into the Allentown Center. We will continue to negotiate an interlocal agreement and timeline with the Simon Group on the much-anticipated Haven project. The design of the new Washington Elementary School is underway, and we are in the final construction phase for the new West Haven High School, which is on schedule and under budget. The American Rescue Plan Act funding of $29 million is before the City Council for review and approval. The plan, when approved by the Council, will address many much-needed projects and programs such as completing the city's Art Center, which will be a catalyst for the revitalization of the Center Business District, prioritize and address chronic neighborhood flooding throughout the city, enlarge and renovate our senior center, allowing for additional programming, invest in a new Allentown library, and address many other important social and economic issues that will benefit West Haven residents. I have appointed an ARPA committee to execute the council's approved plan. The committee is charged with completing the projects on time and within budget. All projects, meetings, budgets, and invoices will be posted online to assure accountability and transparency. I look forward to working and partnering with all the members of the City Council over the next several weeks to pass an honest and balanced budget which will continue our progress investing in education, public safety, infrastructure, and the quality of life for our residents. In conclusion, I would like to thank the members of the Finance Department and department heads for assisting me in compiling the data and information necessary to prepare this comprehensive and important budget document. Respectfully submitted, Mayor Nancy R. Rossi. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And next up, we'll bring up Scott Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. And then Neil will come up now.
Scott, and then Scott will come and then you.
I apologize.
This is for the live stream, that's for the room.
I apologize in advance to the members of the council. It's a bit of a low ceiling, and this was the closest we could get it. If you would like to slide over, it might be a little easier.
Yeah.
Here are some copies of the invitation.
Well, I might have to come this way.
Might make it a little easier. Good evening, members of the public elected officials, members of the press. My name is Scott Jackson, and I am the Finance Director for the City of West Haven. I am here to provide a broad overview of the Mayor's FY23 proposed budget. This budget proposes to raise and spend $168.3 million. This is an increase over the current budget of $165.5 million. However, the city was able to maintain a stable mill rate at 34 mills due to a number of factors. One such factor is healthy growth in the grand list. This is an indication that individuals and entities want to invest in the city of West Haven. Another factor is a significant increase in the payment in lieu of taxes, otherwise known as pilot. These payments come from the state of Connecticut, and as you know and have experienced, no doubt, inner ring suburbs have been underfunded in pilot payments for many years. The General Assembly is seeking to create a fairer pattern of funding distribution, and this budget demonstrates such. The guiding principles of this budget are to provide the stakeholders of the city of West Haven with a community that meets the expectations of a great Connecticut city. It means funding the Board of Education at a rate that ensures the opportunity for excellence for every student. It means maintaining our public safety services and providing the opportunity not only for safe and efficient response, but the opportunity for proactive engagement with the community. It means funding our library and recreation services, which became so critical during the pandemic. When taking these and other factors into account, the budget was set at a $168.3 million level and a mill rate of 34 mills. The budget is available on the city website for anyone here who has not seen it or anyone watching the live stream. With that, I'm going to go through a series of slides that, again, provide an overview. And I certainly look forward to working with you over the next several weeks to refine the budget. Most people start when they see a proposed budget, municipal budget. What's the mill rate? It's the bottom line, right? So a mill rate is the amount per $1,000 of assessed value which is used to calculate property tax. More simply put, it's $1 per $1,000 of assessed value. So with this proposed budget of a 34 mill rate, if you had a property value of $100,000, the property taxes on that would be 100,000 times 34 divided by 1,000. Mill derives from a Latin term for 1/1000th, and so that's why we use it. I took a look this morning at 2022, and 59 Connecticut municipalities have a real estate personal property tax mill rate higher than West Haven's. Now that also means that 109 have one that's lower, but circumstances depend. It's kind of hard to just take the mill rate because depending on when your last reval was and everything like that, it can get to be a little bit of a complex mathematical engagement. So this is a simplified version of how the mill rate is actually calculated. To speak in English as opposed to in math, you take your expenditure budget. You subtract out your sources of revenue, state aid, fees, operating charges, and things like that. And that's how you develop the number that you want to get to. And so when we do that in mathematics, we believe that we need to raise $101.2 million in property taxes. But we know we're not going to collect it all. So we back into another number based upon the collection rate. And the collection rate that we used is 98.4, which is historically accurate. You can get into trouble if you try to push that number too high because you end up in a shortage. So what you do is you go back historically, you factor in any large transactions that may move the mill rate. You know, if a large factory is going to be converted to a public property or something like that, you kind of meter it that way. But we are comfortable with this number at 98.4. And so we need to levy, we need to send out tax bills totaling $102.8 million to achieve the $101.2 million necessary to end the year in a balanced budget. The Connecticut general statutes require a balanced expenditure and revenue budget. So you're always trying to meet that target. Next is the city mill rate history. So as you can see, there were several years in, between FY13 and FY17 where the mill rate did not move. That caused some internal problems which caused it to spike up over the next 4 years. But due to a number of factors, we've been able to reduce that to the 34 mills in FY22 and hold that number again in FY23 to provide some level of stability for the taxpayers. So I'm going to go through the revenue projections and the expense projections next. And so these are large categories. So on the revenue, we see the property tax levy of that $101.2 million that I mentioned before as the largest item. Non-current taxes are taxes owed that folks just haven't paid yet. And some of them are in collections, some of them are in suspense collections or other mechanisms. But 1.7 million is what the anticipated revenue is from that line. There's a line for interest and lien fees at $832,000. Licenses and permits at $1.7 million. Fines, forfeits, and penalties at $246,000. The use of money and property, that's $80,000. From other agencies, this is where state aid is identified at $57.5 million. Charges for current services at $1.9 million. Other revenues at $2.2 million, and other financial sources at $624,000, leading to that grand total of $168.3. To view it graphically, 61% of that 168 comes from local tax versus 62% last year or current year. State grants went from 32.8 to 34.05, and local other went from 4.57 to 5.05. Clearly, the biggest driver of change in this is the increase in the funds that we anticipate receiving from the state of Connecticut. On the expense side of the equation, general government, which is mayor's office, city council, et cetera, is recommended at $2.5 million, planning and development at $1.3 million, finance at $2.9 million, public safety at $17.2 million, public works at $12.6 million, human resources at $2.4 million, library at $1.5 million, Board of Education at $89.9 million, operating charges at $21.4 million. Those are items like pension and insurances, things like that. Debt service, you'll see drops from 17.9 to 14.6. I believe the mayor referenced that in her remarks as well, because of the drop off of the pension obligation bonds, and that yields a grand total of that same 168.39. So again, represented graphically, the Board of Education is about 56.8% of the budget. Debt is about 5%, down from 8.61% in current year. General admin is 5.4%, public safety is 10.2%, public works is 7.5%, retiree health and pension is 12%, 12.6%, and social services are 2.39%. Obviously, one of our biggest expenses, or our biggest expense, is our most valuable resource, which is our people. So this next graph demonstrates the staffing levels for the city going back to FY15. This budget does add 7 positions, 7 critical positions. We've spoken at prior council meetings and other sites about the need to reconstitute, for example, the purchasing department and do some additional work in IT. So that's what those 7 positions are that you see represented as proposed in FY23. So this is a bit of a busy slide, the next one. But if you start from the graph, it gets a little bit easier to understand. The 3 primary movers in any budget are revenues, expenses, and grand list. So this slide represents the growth in the grand list, which has been pretty significant over the last 5 years. So the grand list is now up to $3.13 billion, which allows the tax burden to be spread amongst more properties of value. So that is one of the primary reasons why we were able to maintain the mill rate at 34.0. This slide is actually leading to a slide that's not a slide. It's a comment and a statement. One of the reasons, or once you start looking at this as as numbers and not items of value, it can get a little bit lost. You can get a little bit lost in the weeds. What this chart shows is that there really has been some pretty significant progress in terms of the town's rainy day fund, or the city's rainy day fund. And you want your budget to be able to continue that positive growth. But the slide that is not on here is that, in my opinion, this slide is secondary to creating value for your community. Items of value are what drive investment, increase the grand list, and start to drive the taxes down. So you got to keep an eye on this, absolutely. But the value proposition, in my opinion, always has to stay front of mind as well. And so with that, I appreciate your time. Again,
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
look forward to working with all of you and be well at this.
Excuse me, Mr. Jack, could you shut that camera off? Thank you. I'm blind.
Good evening, Mayor Rossi, Chairman Massaro, and members of the City Council. I'm Neil Cavallaro. I serve as the school district superintendent of schools. This evening, my remarks will be brief, but it is my hope that I'll leave you with some important things to think about as we go down the road. And these are things that I've shared with the mayor and the MARB. When the board passed its operating budget, we discussed them, and I think it's important I bring them to your attention as well. As you all know, we work closely with the administration, MARB, and this council to do our share to keep costs down, but still provide the children of West Haven with a quality education. As one of 33 Alliance school districts, we have used increases from the state to supplement our budget over the last 7 years. During the pandemic, this district has taken advantage of additional funding to substantially upgrade our technology, and the result has been able to provide every student with a computer device. We've purchased smart boards, improved air quality, created outdoor learning space, and I believe have used the additional funds very wisely. Most importantly, we've used COVID funds to hire an additional 50 teachers, which was one of the main emphasis for what we call the ESSER funds, when the state put out their requirement from the federal government to hire additional teachers to assist those who've fallen behind academically and for those who've been socially and emotionally affected by the closures. That being said, I'm happy to report to you tonight that the board believes it can make it through the next year without an increase from the budget. Bear in mind, we're not going to operate the budget on a flat level. 1.4 million will be additional Alliance grant money, and about $2.4 million will be grant money, which we've used to fund those positions, which I just talked about. It's important, however, that I inform you that together we must look ahead. Last week, for example, and think about this, our IT group told the board that this district, since the beginning of COVID, went from managing around 3,000 computers to almost 9,000. We can't go backwards. At some point, keep in mind, those computers are going to need to be replaced. So we had a good problem. Because we were an Alliance district, every student at West Haven High School got a free computer from the state. We've gotten additional money from the state to fund those computers. That money's not guaranteed down the road. We've also had the benefits of the construction project at the high school. Remember that we touted that project, at how well that school is equipped with all of the best tools to instruct kids. The project included computers, science equipment, smart boards, mechanicals, and other things necessary to offer our kids the best opportunity to compete when they leave us. So those are things that we haven't had to figure in or factor into our budget this year, and will be good for the next couple of years. I want to make that clear. Again, it's a matter of about 3 to 4 years before we have to start replacing. Earlier in my speech, I mentioned the additional support we hired with the COVID funds. While I believe we can reduce that number, and we have to, because that money's not going to be there forever, as students settle back into the routine, I know that our kids come to school with many needs and will continue to need those positions, many of those positions, for years to come. One area that this is especially true is with our EL population. It continues to grow by leaps and bounds each year, and we are constantly in need of additional staff. In fact, during the MARB meeting last week, it was brought to my attention that I was able to share with them that we had 700 new kids register in this district during the course of the year. 300 of them left. Of the 700 that came in, I believe it's like 200 that have EL needs. So that population's not going to go down. I'll also point out that our special education students, even if the number in those budgets stay flat, there's certainly always an increase to educate kids with special needs. Finally, while the technology and the equipment are important, we must remember that our greatest resources are those who choose to work for our district. Our teachers, administrators, nurses, paras, clerks, custodians, and food service workers. To attract and retain the best, this city must be more competitive. Our starting teacher's salary, for example, are amongst the lowest in the area. The same is true for administrators. If we truly want to have the best and the brightest, we must look at ways to increase their pay. It's especially true if we want to become more diverse in our ranks and have a staff that reflects our student body. I believe I heard on a news report the other day that only 10, which is an increase, 10% statewide of our students, of our teaching staff are minority. So we're all chasing the same limited talent out there. So if you want to get the best, you got to pay for it a little bit. Spoke to the members of the MARB last week, as I mentioned, and they seem to understand these long-term issues. Over the coming days, weeks, and even once this budget cycle has been completed, it doesn't have to be now because, as I said, we're not asking the city for more money in this year. These are things that you need to keep in mind. I look forward to working with you on a plan that will ensure that first and foremost, our students have the best experience possible while they're part of our school district, and one that will allow us to grow and meet the needs of an ever-changing community. I thank you for your time this evening, and I wish you well in your deliberations. And you know that I, Matt, and anyone from my staff is available to work with you either at a meeting or during the day. If you want to come in and talk to us, we're more than happy to meet with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Alvarado. This time, we're going to turn the meeting over to Councilman Ron Quagliani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will enter into the public comment portion of the FY23 budget comments from the public. Again, as a reminder, this is comments on the FY23 mayor's recommended budget only. This isn't an ARPA discussion or a general discussion. It's on comments regarding the mayor's recommended budget. The first person on the list to speak is John Galvin.
Okay, my name is John Galvin. I live at 40 Crest Street. I am also, and I'm here tonight as the president of the Village Improvement Association, which by city charter is tasked with operating the library. Even though Councilman Quagliani said not to mention any ARPA, I do have to refer to my comments last night because I forgot to thank Councilman Robert Bruno for his efforts in assisting the library. We were in negotiations and ready to purchase a used bookmobile, and Councilman Bruno took his time and traveled with two people from the library who and he examined the vehicle, and thanks to his expertise, we did not purchase a lemon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Mayor Rossi, Chairman Massaro, I'm here to thank the mayor and the council for once we got our request. And I would certainly urge that the council act upon the request as requested by the mayor. As far as the library is concerned, last year, this council undertook a survey concerning library operations. And I would certainly urge, especially the new members, but also the present members, to review this survey. It showed that the West Haven Library is by far the most efficient in the area. In fact, I would recommend that the city council publish this on the city website, or the mayor, that that survey can be available to the entire city. And it has specific recommendations as to what the public feels we as the VIA have to provide for them. And we are striving to do that. And again, thank you for your consideration and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin, for your comments. Next speaker is Barry Lee Cohen.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm here this evening as relates to the city budget, not
Mr.
the...
Cohen, just your name and address for the
Oh,
record.
I'm sorry, sir. Barry Lee Cohen, 232 Morgan Lane.
Thank you.
Okay. Once again, good evening. I'm here this evening as regards the city budget. In reviewing it prior to this evening, there seems to lack some justification and defined measurables for certain areas of the city budget. Furthermore, there are, and I want to bring this to your attention as you go through this budget. Furthermore, there's certain budget lines that lack some transparency, which is obvious. When you compare them against prior years' budgets, the last couple of years' budget, you start taking a look at the actual expenses that were made to certain areas versus the request versus the actual expenses. Plus, you're also adding heads in some areas, most of which are needed. But then you have to start taking a look at the other areas that you were spending on that. How could you otherwise use them? And I ask you to really be careful about what was budgeted versus the actual of what you spent, okay? I don't want us as a city to repeat the sins of the past that contributed to our fiscal crisis and tarnished our reputation. Now, I can tell you from a general standpoint right now, because as I've sat up there as you guys are right now, we have to dig, the devil's in the details. You're going to dig line item by line item. I've always called it a colonoscopy. You guys are going to do your own detailed work as well. But I would challenge us that, to take advantage, especially with the ARPA funding and other funds that are coming in through pilot and so forth, to take a look at bolstering our general or rainy day fund even more, and also possibly taking a look at offsetting some of the bonding projects that we have. And again, I know the devil's in the details, but this is something, when I took a look at the budget before you, I was concerned about that. I thought there was something you could dig deeper for. However, this evening, to talk specifics, I'm just going to really touch on two areas as regards the budget itself. Okay, two areas. One of them is the pay raises for elected municipal officials. Okay, obviously, in the business world, there's quite often the annual job performance review that helps us to facilitate what, if any, increase in compensation might be granted an employee. Those who excel are rewarded, those who aren't are not rewarded, and those that fall even shorter are either disciplined or they're let go. Well, we all realize this is not a business, that this is a municipality. And therefore, when reviewing the compensation of elected municipal employees, which are in your budget for budget increases, we must look at the position, responsibilities, and follow the law or the clear intent of the law, as well as best practices being used, without favoring individuals or basing compensation on conjecture or, in some cases, false pretenses. Now, in the case of the city of West Haven, these elected officials include the mayor, the city clerk, both registers of voters, as well as the tax collector. All these are elected municipal positions, okay? As well as the treasurer and the city council persons. We all know that the last three that I mentioned, the council persons, the treasurer, and the tax collector, are not up for proposed increases, but regardless, to increase the compensation of any of these officials in the middle of an elected term runs counter to Connecticut State Statute 460, Section 7, which is predicated on legislators, but the intent and used by other municipalities also goes for and is used for other elected officials. And it's also common sense. It's common sense that you do not raise those salaries. It is respected and considered by municipalities throughout this state because it is the intent of the law. I will also say specifically, if this council, because you are the budget authority, based on that state statute, that you as the budget authority feel that it is appropriate to reset the salaries, the stipends, and/or annual increases, this council should feel compelled to require any adjustments that you might decide to make, any adjustments whatsoever, do not go into effect until the next election cycle. With all due respect, and I do mean that, with all due respect, to do otherwise would be unconscionable and irresponsible. Although salary, and I want to say this right here, right now, although salary increases may very well be appropriate, I don't question that, each of these elected officials, including yourselves, knew what the set compensation for their position was when they were campaigning for their respective office and subsequently elected. No expectation of an increase in salary in these positions should have been anticipated or even proposed in the budget. Furthermore, if any increase is erroneously approved and implemented for this fiscal year, for the upcoming fiscal year, by this council, I would surely hope that it would be refused by these elected officials as to demonstrate the trust that voters had placed on them to uphold the honor of their offices. Let me be clear. I do not, I repeat, I do not disagree that the salaries for certain elected official positions, as what Mr. Cavallaro noted for the Board of Education, should be increased in the future. In fact, such an action may attract highly skilled individuals from the private sector and elsewhere who have a passion for public service, like all of you up here, like myself. We all have a passion for public service. But unfortunately, a lot of people cannot convert that passion because they cannot sacrifice a significant pay reduction that their families rely upon. But regardless, for the here and now, regardless, any elected official that would have the audacity to expect a raise in the middle of their term should consider applying for a job in the private sector, I truly feel, with all due respect, that it disrespects the electorate to be giving raises in the middle of a term. I certainly hope that there should be no debate that any increase in the middle of an elected term breaks the public trust, because it certainly does break the public trust, especially given the ongoing scandals, investigations, and fiscal mismanagement caused by this administration, which has thus far cost taxpayers about $1.2 million. To be specific, mayor, city clerk, tax collector, treasurer, and councilpersons, any actions by this body to alter current compensation for any of these positions would be taken prior to the November 2023 municipal elections and would go into effect at the start of the newly elected term beginning December 2023. In the case of the Registrar of Voters, the next election would be November 2024, whereas any increase would take place when a new term begins, which I believe would be January 2025. I'm not sure on that, either December 2024 or 25. And I'd like to circle back, if I may, on the registrar's proposed 17.9% stipends increase as proposed by Ms. Rossi. Over the prior 2 years in budget cycles, during the height of the pandemic, it was clearly apparent of the extra burden the two registrars absorbed then and would confront during this current term, given the mass mailing of absentee ballot applications during the 2020 election and the increase of absentee ballots experienced in the November 2021 municipal election versus the 2019 municipal election. Those are facts. That is data. Okay? For whatever reason, and respectfully, Ms. Rossi had the opportunity to increase the registrar's stipend during the prior term to go into effect this term. These proposed increases by the registrar's office, and you can take a look at the last two proposed budgets versus actual, because the registrar's office has asked for increases in their stipends, which have been, they were consistently denied and not part of the proposed budgets. So we had our opportunity to go into the next year, like other towns do. And I can refer to you, you can Google it, and I understand that every town has a different charter, but again, the respect and the intent of 460 Section 7 permeates throughout all of this. And this also includes the most recent example, no, not most recent, but a recent example was Stratford, June 2021. Google it, look it up, and you'll basically see how they've handled it. And the list goes on and on. I've also contacted several municipalities around here to see how they've handled it. And they said, you know what? It's common sense. You just don't do that during the middle of a term. You know, obviously not for mayor, but for any elected municipal official. By and large, that's been across the board. Now, my second area, and I thank you for your patience, and I respect your time as best as I can. I'm very concerned about the Corporation Counsel office. $738,000 proposed for this office, and then you have to add out another $75,000 to $100,000 in benefits, because when I was sitting in your seats, we calculated out like the health benefits and the pension about $27,000 a head. I might have that off by $1,000. So what you're talking about without benefits, $738,000 for a corporation counsel, in-house, like we have. And they're all good gentlemen and ladies, we don't doubt that, but I have to look at the price tag, I have to look at the taxpayers' concern on this. So it comes down to a very simple question, and I beseech you to please, please rethink, and challenge as you go through the budgets. Why? Ask yourselves, why does the office of the Corporation Counsel exceed the budgets of other municipalities of comparable size, scope, and complexity? It is time to rethink and further examine why we are rebuilding and expanding a City of West Haven law firm versus better alternatives. And what I basically did last night, because I don't have a life obviously, but what I did last night is I basically took a very good look at the proposed budget of the City of West Haven for this upcoming year, and then I basically examined two other municipalities that also their proposed budgets for the 2022-2023 year. And again, this is just I could be off a little bit, but the fact still remains. Take a look at Milford, Connecticut, right next door, okay? We both have we have like 55,000 people here in West Haven, and Milford has about 53,000, so comparable size, lots of same commonalities in terms of crime that they have in the mall, to the shorefront, to a number of things. And you know what? This is going to shock you. When you include, because they do outside counsel, they have an outside court, which is very common, growing very much in commonality today, an outside counsel. If you take the additional health benefits that they don't have to pay, that we pay between $175,000 to $200,000 more, $175,000 to $200,000 more than Milford. And I'll tell you how that adds up. Off the top of my head, I might be off a couple of thousand. Our budget, $738,000. Their budget, approximately $600,000. Then you add on the full-time employee benefits and stuff like that. That's how you get another $7,500, $100,000. Right there is your $175,000 to $200,000. And I say that because I'm uncertain about part-time employees. So there is a huge, huge difference for similar populations. And we are growing this. That is something does not add up. Now I want to give you another one, because I'm trying, and I could have gone on all and all last night, but I stopped at 2, okay? I stopped at 3, including the West Havens. Take another municipality that has an in-house corporation counsel like us, okay? Just so you get both sides of the scale. Hamden, Connecticut. Population, at least when I Googled it, about 61,000 people. We got about 55,000. So a little bigger than us, in-house counsel. When you take a look at their budget versus our budget, we are still proposing about $40,000 more than Hamden, okay? And then when you start taking, and so right there, it's saying to me, this department, maybe it's taking on responsibilities that exceed the Corporation Counsel office and should be left with other people that are supposed to be doing their jobs in their offices, okay? Versus giving it to the Corporation Counsel and having that office, as good as they are from a legal perspective, be doing other chores that perhaps they are not qualified to do, or that we should have people that are qualified to do in other departments. So it's very, very concerning in terms of that. And so you really have to give that a lot of thought, and you can download, I don't have it exactly right, but I am giving you the trends right. We're spending more. We have to rethink that, and we have to do that on behalf of the people of West Haven, okay? We have to make those tough decisions. So growing the West Haven Corporation law firm, another, I believe it's 6.9% according to the bottom line of that budget, 6.9%. And by the way, That's 6.9%. We all have to remember this. That 6.9% or the 20% or the 17.9%, whatever percent you're talking about, those are the percents without what you would imagine, just like me and you, we pay health benefits, the increase in benefits. So, you know, you're paying personnel, which obviously, they're they need health benefits, but everything goes up. So you're not even including the health benefits there. So 6.9% increase because, and I say this with all due respect, because I'm a data guy. And and I'm looking at this and I read, and I'm reading the New Haven Register. Hi, Brian. Reading the New Haven Register, and Ms. Rossi is quoted, and respectfully so. And she says, I quote, "We wish to get to some semblance of normalcy by increasing that budget." Normalcy. Do we really want to get back to where we were, the normalcy of that type of normalcy, of those types of outrageous expenditures for this office based on what other towns are paying? Is that normal? Is that even appropriate? Or do we want to have a new normal of true fiscal responsibility? Here is our chance. Here is our chance. I believe in my heart, the Corporation Counsel Office, thanks to you up there or future councils, will be transformed to be for the benefit of West Haven. There will be a change in leadership, and when that happens, that office will be transformed. So in summary, this evening, committing the sins of the past is unacceptable and unsustainable. We can and we must do better for the taxpayers of West Haven. Now, as you'd expect, I have much more to say, to communicate, especially as regards our planning and development budget, but I will yield the floor so we can all get home, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you for your service. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen, for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council regarding the mayor's FY23 recommended budget? For the second time, is there anyone from the, yes, ma'am. Just approach the podium and give your name and address for the record.
I am Regina Jensen. I live at 200 Elm Street, West Haven. I've lived there approximately 2.5 years, and I'm relatively new to West Haven, approximately 4 years. So many people ask me why I came to West Haven. People who have lived here for years and years, they describe it as a very depressed, and what brought me to West Haven? I love the beach, I love the water. I lived here many years ago as a travel nurse, and I loved the size of this community, but it is very depressed. There is not a lot that this community offers me and my grandchildren when they visit. They don't even have a sticker on their car to go to the beach. I mean, this community, which I love, and has so much to offer, has nothing. And so I am in cahoots with Erminia Gaeta, who you might have seen once in a while. And originally we started off pushing for a senior center and all the things that it encompasses. She has asked me to read this letter tonight, and then I want to add a few comments, okay? So she says, from Armenia, I don't know specifically if this is about American Rescue Plan. Are you concerned with that kind of budgeting money? Is this what?
You can continue, ma'am.
Okay. I'm writing to give you, this is from Armenia, my ideas on the American Rescue Plan funds, which I understand to be in the neighborhood of $29 million. Before you make your final decision, please take a moment to consider the following. I am philosophically opposed to having the money used to shore up our city's budget. This would only provide a temporary reprieve from a much larger problem and leave us with little or nothing to show for the funds. Existing programs and projects, which are budgeted yearly, should not qualify for this special one-time fund. This is not in any way doubting their importance or worthiness, but simply a belief that we owe it to ourselves and to future generations to use these funds to build something that will be lasting, something new, which can generate excitement and spur growth. How should the funds be spent? I strongly believe that it would be wise to use a portion of the funds to build a community center, one that combines various programs to serve a cross-section of the population. I heard that gentleman from education talk about 700 new kids coming into the system. Where do they go after school? What do we offer them after school? What does this community have to offer youth after school? Perhaps this would be a complex with a library, community activity center, outdoor recreational facilities, parking, and so on. That is something for professionals in the field to plan out, but we should not dismiss its importance. A modern, well-designed, and multi-purpose community center would serve as a monument to our collective resilience during this historic pandemic and become the pride of West Haven. I urge you to embrace the idea of a proper senior center, not only because seniors vote, but because it's the right thing to do. And this from Armenia. I just want to add, along with myself, Armenia and several other people have done enormous research. This has gotten us into visiting other towns, other senior centers, other community centers. We are impressed with one that we saw that had after-school facilities for the children. They had a room where Red Cross was using for blood donations. Mothers were there exercising. This is all in one afternoon that we were there. It appealed to and served every member of the community, including the seniors. It had a state-of-the-art senior thing, which, I'm sure would be nice, but I don't see it happening immediately here. I want just to change the image of West Haven. You guys are in a position to do that. From a depressed, you ride along Campbell Avenue, and I just remember why somebody said to me, these are people who have lived there for many years. Why did you come here? Why did you come to this area? This area has great potential, and I love it. And you are in a position, as well as the mayor, to make some changes, to pick this up, to make us all very proud of it, and not have people asking me, why would you live in West Haven? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council? For a second time, is there anyone from the public? Two bites of the apple, Armenia, huh? Please, go ahead.
To say about the budget, my name is Armenia and I live at 58 West Walk.
Could you adjust the microphone?
Which one?
That one.
This one?
Yeah.
When I went for my eye operation and I had to get up off the bed at whatever, somebody of the nurse said, "Oh, you are little." I said, "Well, I never stopped growing." So, my comment for tonight is in regarding to the workers that they get paid. They are employed of the city, right? They get paid. Why do they have a supervision that they go and see what the job that they do? When I went to look at Noble Street Senior Center, the building, these past years, the edges, the leaves were not taken care of. So This year, they did, when I went to see them, the edges were trimmed, but they don't remove the weeds the wild that go in between. I mean, I go on the boardwalk when I go for a walk, and I see the weeds that go among the flowers. I pull them myself. I pull them because I feel sorry for the flowers. They're going to suffer if the weed suffocates them. Over there, the leaves that had not been blown up for who knows, couple of years, they're all, it's full of leaves in the back of the edges. So you have weeds, wild invasive plants, and the leaves that they're not cleaned up. On the boardwalk, last year they did not rake the leaves. They all left piled up on the boardwalk. This year, they did it, but when I went with the last 20 feet, they did not do it. What's the matter with finishing the job? I mean, the whole boardwalk, they rake the leaves, they blow the leaves. But on the last about 10, 15 feet, 20 feet, they did not do it. Why? Doesn't the supervisor goes and check if the job was well done? And these are the two things that I've seen. The rest, I don't know. I don't go and inspect. I don't even know where things are. And that's all I wanted to say. Maybe accountability of the job that they do is the city. They get paid, and they should do the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia, for your comments.
My name is Carol Warren. I live at 86 West Walk. Moved here 6 years now. Sometimes it's hard to believe. I want to just say one brief statement that I believe the city has missed its opportunity with the property. I believe it's Sykes, Spites, former high school, or there is your community center opportunity. It's the right size building, but otherwise then try to get that accomplished for the city and make it worthwhile. You sell that property to somebody else, and it might sit there for another 7 years and never get done. I think you should look at yourself and understand you're losing an opportunity.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the city council regarding the FY23 mayor's recommended budget? For a second time, anyone from the public like to address the city council? For a third and final time, is there anyone in the public that would like to address the city council? Seeing none, the public hearing on the mayor's recommended FY23 budget is now closed, and I'll turn it back over to the chair, Chairman Massaro.
Thank you, Councilman Quagliani. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Your comments were taken, and we'll review it when we go over the budget. And I think this budget is going to be a very good budget this time, again, for the third year. And we'll look into all your comments that you made. And thank you very, very much. And a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Good night.